Hi, everybody. We are back at Bloom Chat Live. We're going to be talking about triggering tonight. I'm going to make sure I can see all your comments. We're going to try to make this a little more interactive. First of all, I'd like to ask if you guys give us a thumbs up, press the little heart button, make a comment so we know that you're here and you're watching us. And like I said, I'm going to try to make this a little more interactive. We really want to hear about we want to talk a lot about triggering. We want to talk about what exactly it is, and then how you deal with it. And we'd love to hear any tips and anything that you guys out there have done to help you get.
I have to tell you, we have a guest here tonight who is a total specialist, a New Jersey lobbyist, and a therapist right down in Rowan. Her name is Kate Torres. Hi, Kate. She runs Artemis. The Artemis group, which is all for PMADs and also for people who are coming back home from the military and how they intersect. So I'm really happy to see
Kate. Kate's watching us tonight.
Yep.
Okay, so Kate, welcome. Next time we'll have you live with us.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. See your face. Please chime in. Again, like I was saying, any kind of tips, anything that you guys have done to help you get through those triggering moments. And Lisa, as we know, Lisa's here because she's already chimed in. See, the last broadcast you were just too quiet. It's all bottled up, right, Lisa?
I've been holding it in for a week. I didn't appreciate
that. And Meg is here with us as well, and she's going to share some of her experiences regarding triggering. But let's get straight into it, Lisa. And please just give us the definition of triggering.
You know, it's funny, and I said this I was at, with therapists and everybody today, and everyone who came by my office, I'm like, what do you think a trigger is? Is it I think because when you're working with it, sometimes you're so close to it, and to me, the word trigger and intrusive thought go like hand in hand. But when I started thinking about it, Shannon, because of losing your mom, and trigger is actually singular, and an intrusive thought can be with it, but you were the first one that really gave me that kind of eye-opening event, because I think in what we do, triggering and intrusive thoughts go hand in hand.
Right, but a trigger happens with any kind of, I guess, when there is a traumatic event, a tragedy. You mentioned losing my mom, and we had this discussion, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but we, and I feel bad saying this, and I'm going to hopefully fix it after I say it. I realized the grief was getting triggered every time I talked to my dad.
That's the story.
Every day. I love my dad. My dad's the most amazing person in the world. But and obviously that's not something I could avoid or would want to avoid, but that's when we kind of, I think, talked about it's not just an intrusive thought kind of thing, and it's not just a maternal mental health, although that's our focus tonight. But it is, we're getting to the definition. It's a traumatic event, I guess, happens, and
it can even be beyond being a traumatic event. It can be a smell. It could be like some people won't even know that trigger is, they walked in the hospital when they were 7 and their grandmother was sick and maybe passing away, and they were brought there to visit her. And the smell of the hospital, whatever that smell is to you, was a memory. It was a memory that was in the sense of smell. 16 years later, they go to have a baby and they walk in and they're like, why do I feel dread when I was so excited about this event? And it was because it triggered a memory that was not positive. So triggering is really a event or any of our senses, sight, smell, taste, that make us go back to a place that was not comfortable. And then intrusive thoughts can play in with it, but triggering can be just in and of itself.
And I'm going to let Meg say a little bit. You're a survivor of postpartum anxiety, I think is what I recall. And share a story, share something that is a triggering event that you had, and again, then how you adjusted to it within your life.
Okay. Well, my experience with postpartum anxiety was coming up on about 6 years ago that I actually was able to reach out and seek help. So during that time, I found certain things were raising my anxiety. And even after I had been seeking some treatment and felt like I was starting to heal, little things like clutter and my baby crying, that newborn cry, would be things that would bring me back to what then just became a bad day, not a bad month, not a bad week, but I'd have those moments where I felt stuck back in that experience. And those were smaller things that would almost add up. Like I could handle if it was a little bit cluttery, but it was like clutter and the crying and other things all together that would add up for me throughout the day. But the one trigger that for me was the most overall thing that even as recently as last weekend still was difficult for me is with water. Like with my kids being in water, especially really now it's both kids. It started with bathtub. That was something for me that I would see over and over again in my mind, just my daughter in the tub, and she would just slip under the water. And I would see that over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, I either needed to be I had to be the one to give her a bath, or I didn't want to be anywhere near it because then it was like it wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it if I was either watching somebody else give her a bath. I mean, anyone else, my mother, my husband, I could not deal with it. I would find myself like jumping in to help because I needed to make sure that she wasn't going to be in danger.
And what you're talking about is what Lisa addressed before, and that's the triggering coupled with the intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, and that for me was the most debilitating. That even for a long time, like I grew up, we loved going to the beach. We were in pools all the time, and when she was little, I could have her and hold her in the water as long as I was physically holding her. I felt okay, but I couldn't really watch other people take her in the pool, which is sad. Like other people wanted to have those memories, mm-hmm. and I couldn't let that happen. Even a little kiddie pool, I was very hyper aware of it.
So Meg, nothing actually ever happened with your daughter with water. So the traumatic event was the postpartum anxiety and the intrusive thoughts, not the actual physical thing that happened.
Right. But my body, my physical reaction, it was just constantly replaying that. And I would go back to that point where I was not able to stop that mm-hmm. intrusive thought. I've since learned a lot of coping mechanisms that help me. For a long time, it would be when I was already feeling a little elevated or agitated, wouldn't be a good day to go to the pool club. Right. You know, certain things like that, I would avoid it. And that mean my kids were missing out on things. Yeah, but they were also getting a mom that was going to be more present and more able to, be the mom they needed me to be throughout that day. Just maybe wasn't going to be at a pool. But my daughter now is a strong swimmer for 6. My son, not yet. But it still can be really difficult for me especially in a chaotic environment when there might be a lot of people, those parties where there's so many adults that no one's really watching mm-hmm. what's going on in the pool, or when there's like a big party and everyone's having fun and everyone's watching a little, but I can't relax and enjoy that the way that I wish that I was able to. So part of the way that I guess that I cope with that is limiting those events. And then other times what I can do is I do recognize that it is an intrusive thought, and I kind of talk to my thoughts in a way to say like, okay, I know you're just trying to keep us safe. I know you're worried about the kids. I'm worried about the kids. We're fine. We're going to be safe. We're okay. Everybody's swimming. Everybody's happy. There's a lifeguard here. Things like that are reassuring to me. But I still say no to the water slide theme parks. That's something that we're not even going toward yet.
So Lisa, let me ask you this, because Heidi is chiming in. Hi, Heidi. And she talked about when she walked past her, she see her slamming her fingers in them, which is, again, another triggering intrusive thought connection. My question for you is, do you deal with triggers that are related to intrusive thoughts differently than you deal with triggers that are related to a traumatic occurrence? You know what I'm saying?
I think my answer is, again, you love this, yes and no. So if your trigger comes from a prior experience, a traumatic birth event that was, let's just say out of your control. You were planning to have a vaginal delivery and events took over where we had to do a cesarean section. So that wasn't in your plan. It wasn't what you wanted. And your perception is reality. So your perception is that no one told you what was going on. You were in a crisis. Was the baby in danger? Was I in danger? I know that a cesarean occurred. So the next time that that mom gets pregnant, she's going to have a lot of pre-anticipated trauma around her eventual birth. So if she becomes one of, our patients, one of the support group people, someone who's somehow connected to someone in PPD, then we would do the work to say, let's put that in a box over here, just like Meg said about, I tell myself, there's only two ways to do it, to talk to it or to go around it. So then we go to have a better birth experience, and it's not going to be the same, and you're in control. So we're giving the traumatic event a different ending. Yes, that Candace is so good too. Exactly. And all anxiety, what Candace is saying is when she gets a PTSD feeling or when she gets this triggery feeling, she feels it physically, 100% true. I mean, it literally is that fight or flight feeling, and you get that rush of cortisone in your body to either do something or leave. Mm-hmm. And how can you do that when you're strapped down to Tocos and you're on monitors in a delivery bed? So we had to help you before that. But then there's events that we know are coming that may be triggering. So let's plan for them in the fact that they may be. So you have a 33-week baby and it was in NICU for 2, 3, 4 weeks. So all they pump into you when you leave NICU is how very susceptible your baby is to germs because it was earlier. So a normal grandma on the street in Pathmark is like, oh, look at baby. And they reach in to touch the baby and everything in you is like, no. And because you have been taught that these germs, what they could do. So we want to get ahead of that. And they now print. What, honey? Okay.
Oh, I've seen those little, like it's like a cute, like poem. It's like, I don't want to say it's friendly, but it's less offensive than lady, get off my kid, so.
I like stop the F where you're going and don't touch my kid.
It works.
It does work. So we had a mom in today, Cassidy. I don't know if she's watching. She talked about watching, who had an early baby, same thing, NICU, a lot going on. And I would not even let anyone pick the baby up today. Now I am an old NICU nurse and I know that even germs on my shoulder for a baby who's compromised, can add anything to her and would be dangerous, but other people don't think that way and they don't have malice. They just don't think that way.
Okay. So here's the question. And something like that is very obvious to the person who's experiencing that trigger. They know, they walk in, they know, that's why they're being triggered, but it's not always so obvious. It's not always so obvious why all of a sudden I'm feeling this way. If it's a smell, like you mentioned, or if it's, a person you happen to see who you don't even know, who's maybe a very nice person, but happened to be there when you were at the hospital all the time. Is there a way to identify the triggers?
I think that a lot of times in group and stuff, they come up organically, and okay. Cassidy is here. So Cassidy, anything you want to chime in, and thank you for coming here. She's amazing. I mean, that's another super mom, who has such an early baby. As my baby is talking to me.
You got a budget when you're trying to go through
okay, the baby. Bye-bye. And then triggers could be, so we have to address triggers preempting them. right? Intrusive thoughts, I think, are in the moment. Does that make sense, Meg?
I think so. Like, once you're aware of your trigger, it's easier to do that. But I think Shannon's question was more like, well, what if you don't know what's triggering you? Right. For me, yes, the intrusive thought was very clear. So I knew how those were related. But as far as like figuring out that it was like clutter and noise and things like that, I had to do a little bit of journaling for myself, just to say, like, today I felt, and I was usually like angry and irritated and all of these other things. And I would try through some therapy. Well, what were we doing right before that? Oh, I was picking up all of the things, every giant plastic baby contraption all over my house, and I felt just weighed down by all this stuff. Oh, and the baby was screaming and crying, and it was just like, oh, okay. Next time it would be something else that was a similar combination of things for me. That's why those things I didn't realize for a while. I thought I just liked things neat, but it really was beyond that it was the discomfort that I felt with
recognizing
just
half the battle. And talking, and it may be someone else in your family recognizes it before you do, or a friend recognizes it before you do. But what happens? What do we do about something where it's a trigger and you cannot avoid it? And Michelle is kind of prompting me to ask this question because as she's commenting that everything maternity, pregnancy triggers her. You can't really avoid that in life.
And Michelle is pregnant now with her 4th baby. So again, her mom. And, so there is a lot of work to do because and Michelle knows this. I'm not telling her anything she doesn't know. She is doing the work. She's coming while she's pregnant to rewrite her story, to get coping mechanisms. I mean, there are coping mechanisms, like when we say you feel it physically. The act of bopping a rubber band on our wrist changes our orientation for a second, right? You get that painful kind of response. Holding ice is huge. It just makes your body change direction. So you just pivot from it. So you can hold ice, you can put something on here. It's fascinating, and it works every time. Holding ice. Huge.
That worked for me when I had vertigo and I couldn't figure out but it helped me to like reset. I just kind of focused for a minute or two so I could find, whatever I needed to do to get help because I was.
So it helps you focus away from
this spinning feeling that I had with vertigo. Totally not in the same situation, but that's that holding the ice kind of gives you that jarring effect that
it just doesn't.
It helped me.
A weird reset within really specifically within your autonomic nervous system, so you can't feel this cold thing and keep thinking, right? So your body's like, oh my God, it's so cold, and your brain quiets. So then you can say to your brain, shut up. We have been through this before, and it's just a thought. We're going to get through it. We're going to get over that bridge. We're going to, be able to bathe that baby. I mean, there are just triggers. Crying baby, huge. I mean, that is just something. But yet, if it's not my baby, I can hold Meg's baby all day crying, no problem.
I will hold anybody's baby, and it never bothers me. Mm-hmm. But
so here's a question that Jackie had asked, and I think this is a really good point. And she's asking about how do you explain this to other people who don't get PPD, PPA, but triggers aren't, again, as we talked about in the beginning, triggers are not just for PPA, PPD.
You're freezing.
Do you explain it? Do you have to explain it, or do you say
you're? I'm going to take that because you're freezing. So Jackie is right. So what we do with people who don't know our vocabulary, right? All our colloquialisms for saying PPD, PPA, you have anxiety, you have stress, you have birth trauma, is you just bring it down to 5th grade language, just like you would. Where's my teacher, Meg? Right? Where you're going to say to them, I had a really bad birth, and this whole thing just makes me so uncomfortable. If you could just not visit while I'm in the hospital and we'll be home in 2 days, it would just make the difference to me. Who could turn you down? You know, like the way that a girlfriend would talk to you and you'd be like, oh my God, of course, yes. But we're so afraid to tell someone what it is, but we can just use other words and say it in a way that they can understand that isn't PPD specific.
Okay.
One thing that I did, I had seen something around, I think it was 4th of July for fireworks, and it was a lawn sign that said that a veteran had lived there and said, this person has PTSD from their experience, please be mindful when you're using fireworks. And I was like, oh, okay. Now my experience is not a war zone. I am not at all. But just that idea that I had something traumatic and something that everyone else thinks is fun, fireworks, right. No big deal. Go in the pool, Megan, can cause such a reaction to me. So that's how I first explained it, even to, I think, my husband and close family, to say, like, listen, like, do you understand how that might be triggering for someone who has had that experience as a veteran?
Sure. That's
right.
These are my fireworks.
That's a great way to explain to someone.
And Heidi's bringing up another great point. I mean, and again, fancy word, right? And Heidi's a therapist, so we call it grounding. But it really means, like, say someone is having a panic attack. Say it's your kid, and you as a mother automatically will be like, look at me, stop, come here, look at me. Breathe like I'm breathing. Breathe like I'm breathing. So you're taking into account what they're feeling and trying to physically bring them back to a baseline. So grounding can be, I've had people had panic attacks on the phone, and I'll just say, stop your car, pull over. Tell me 3 things you say. And they'll be like, and they're like, I see a car and a steering wheel in my seat. Okay, what 3 things do you smell? Smell, okay, and you're just diverting attention so that they can regain composure of their physical symptoms. And then that feeling of panic physically subsides and you can get control of your mind.
And do you think, because again, there are certain situations, there are certain things you cannot avoid triggers. You just can't. It could be, part of your house or whatever, your daily life. Do they become less powerful the more you involve yourself with them? I mean, is that true? I mean, is it like one of those things? Like,
what would you say, Meg?
I think for me, it has, and I learned, like, okay, I can do a bath, I can bathe now 2 kids, I can do this. It's different than obviously bathing a newborn, so things have changed. But for me, it usually does get better. But then, like I said, because of a bunch of other compounding factors, last weekend at a pool party, I did not. I felt it, and I was able to hold it together, and we were fine. We stayed at the party, and we left, and it was okay. But it just became, I could feel that feeling rising. That when you described it, Lisa, like, I felt like a white hot, like, on my body. Like, my body felt like it was white hot when I have that experience, and that's how I can almost sense that it's coming, and I start kind of talking to myself. So I would say, in general, yes, they do decrease for me with my own experience. But every once in a while, they might come back, and you just have to know how to manage it. And because I've gotten through those moments before, I said I can talk myself through it and say, come on, I know what this is.
Yep,
I can deal with this.
And that's power, to be able to say to a feeling, we've been here before, and it didn't kill me last time, and it's not going to kill me this time, so I can do it, and divert your attention. When you have so many different factors, when you're in the throes of PPD, or when you're in the throes of an event, of losing your mom, of having a divorce. I mean, these crises are not singular to, babies and moms and everything. Anything could be that. So you can then say, once you've been through it, I've been through it, and I'll make it through again. And then I would say to ground yourself, to do something where you divert your attention by using your 5 senses. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I touch? What can I smell? And lastly, what can I taste? And by the time you get to taste, your physical symptoms have gotten less, and you can get back in control.
Okay, so
I like that you're saying, like, the control, because I see Diana commented something about taking control and reclaiming her space again. And I think whether you're reclaiming the bathroom where I bathe my children, or I love that she said she repainted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we said Diana. I was trying to scroll back. Repainted the room.
Yep.
That is so powerful to be able to step in and say, like, okay, I am in control of the changes here.
Yep.
I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to do.
Exactly. And it all goes back to that same phrase we love, healing isn't linear. So no matter what put you in a place where triggering is something for you, green grass, a certain date, a smell, you can say to yourself, I'm going to change how I'm feeling, but not till you recognize and accept to take the power away from that is a trigger. Entering this hospital is going to make me feel sick to my stomach. You know, F you, hospital. When I was here last time, I was a different person, and now I'm a badass. And you walk in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then let's, because triggering is a word that it wasn't part of my brain a couple years ago. I should say even maybe like a year and a half ago, and now I see it everywhere. And I know we've had this discussion. People use, I was triggered. What is triggering not? What is not triggering?
Bad. Yeah. Okay, let me take that one because it makes me crazy. So on different sites or on different, right, Meg, we're on so many sites that are the same and Facebook pages, and it is a very nice etiquette to say before you say something horrifying that you say trigger warning. Oh,
that's okay. We're all grown-ups.
We're live TV.
I know. So you say you're on in our world of social media. You're supposed to say trigger warning, and then space, and whatever your situation is, right? So anyone who has whatever is going to be like, dude, I'm not reading that right now. I'm getting my period.
But you know what? I would never think to do that. Like, I would think to do that now, right. But if I'm going to talk about, losing my mom, it would never have occurred to me to say trigger warning.
Yep. And we live in a very trigger warning world. But trigger warning can get trigger happy because you want to not dilute what a trigger warning is. Does that make sense? So you want to be able to say a trigger warning is like for reals. And a trigger warning of how to fight with my husband is actually every marriage. Like a trigger warning of, something normal is normal. And a huge part of maternal wellness is normalizing normal parenting, marital, partner relationships. Okay. So I don't need a trigger warning that you had a fight with your husband. So did I. So I just need a trigger warning if you had a miscarriage, and you're going to give me all the details on it so that you can start, saying it, emptying yourself of it. That's cool. But I need to know maybe that's not where I want to read if I'm feeling fragile.
And I might want to practice a little self-care and just say, I'm going to skip that post on Lisa. You know what, maybe even say I'm sorry, I'm sad for you, but I can't read that right now because that's going to bring something up in me that it's going to cause me to maybe spiral, or it could, or it may not, but I'm going to be safe and I'm going to just scroll on past that. Yep. But I think you're right, Lisa. Sometimes people see them and then they're like, oh, let me read this. And then it is something that is so shocking that you feel like you weren't, if you weren't warned, you would feel very, very offended and hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
To read that without being prepared.
So it's tough, I guess, because again, you can't avoid life. There will be triggers, especially if you're on social media, and obviously we want you guys to be on social media, but to use caution to protect yourself.
Yeah, I just always say to think of who you're talking in social media is so many, but so few. Right? So just think of how would you talk to Meg, or how would you talk to you? I'd be like, Shannon, I don't want to talk about something about, with this because you just lost your mom. Like that's not kind. And Meg has a toddler, so I'm not going to tell her about, how many toddlers die in cars.
Right.
Close your ears, Meg, that are left at Wawa because you need that coffee.
Right.
So you're just like being respectful and thoughtful.
And I think that's especially in groups, in closed communities where people tend to share more details about things that are hurting them. I think if you're going to do a public post, most of the time people know that if they're reading something, they'll just keep on scrolling by. one other example with the Me Too movement over the last year, people were posting stories, and I know several friends who were survivors of sexual assault, sexual harassment. They found that very triggering because it was everywhere. They felt that they couldn't get away from it.
Right.
So their self-care was, I'm putting my phone away, and I'll come back when I feel a little bit stronger and able to process this, because it came as a surprise, as an organic movement.
For one day, all of a sudden, it was everywhere, and I'm sure it triggered, I mean, hundreds of thousands of like almost everybody, you know, women. And I guess the hashtag helped prevent people from reading too much if they saw that,
right.
You know. Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up. Lisa, Meg, what if you can break it down into, you know, a minute or two, and this is asking way too much, I know. How do people, what do they do to protect themselves from being triggered? And I know this, you know, you guys are experts. I expect wonderful answers. 5 senses, you mentioned, using your 5 senses to ground yourself, and ice cubes, and that kind of.
I love ice cubes. Yeah, and I would just say, you know, and Meg, you can answer too, because you're so much more relevant than I am. I mean, you guys are little, and you were just there, and you know, just saying, I am not able to handle X. I'm not able to handle Mother's Day this year. I'll be in a different place next year. The mother I am now is not the mother I will be in a year. So it's okay. And being as kind to yourself as you would be to a friend, and just protecting yourself.
Being as
Absolutely.
kind to yourself as you would be to a friend. That's a lot. I mean, we need to use that in all parts of our lives, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah,
Of course.
Okay, so good. All right.
Yeah,
well,
I think
you guys, if you missed the broadcast, or if you're just getting up to the end of it, please still, and if you do need help and you need some advice, continue to comment. We go back, we read your comments, we answer your comments. If you, again, have other advice that other people could use regarding triggering, please add those as well. We're all in this together. We're helping each other. And we really appreciate you guys coming. Go to our website if you need additional resources, which is thebloomfoundation.org. And again, if you have toddlers and you're moving on out, Bloom Life is up, which is our community event-based programs for moms and caregivers and dads and whoever wants to come. And you can register for some events in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And if you guys have anything that you want to hear us talk about coming up in the next few weeks, please let us know in the comments, or send us an email, whatever you need to do. I know Lisa, you have something to say, don't you? I can tell.
I do. I want to say hi to Apple. She's out in California. Or are you? Why do I feel like you're visiting some foreign land that's fantastic and much more better than the United States? But I think, on Thursday nights, coming here at 8:30 and talking about things that no one wants to talk about with people who represent at every level, my age and Meg's age, being a young mom. I just think it is tremendous service to all of our moms. If we have 4 million deliveries a year and 900,000 women that are going to suffer from postpartum depression, then we have a lot of work to do. But doing stuff like this and letting them know that they're just awesome people suffering one of the things that happens in the world, it just makes me so happy to come here on Thursdays and debunk all these myths.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better. Thank you, Lisa. Meg, thank you. And everybody who's watching and commenting, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week. Lisa just locked us into every Thursday at 8:30.
I know you love that.
And, in the future, we will have other guest hosts and people, experts talking about different things, and whatever you want to hear about, let us know. And thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.